this is old school NIA reference. You could probably find it on YouTube. Type in .btc on our YouTube channel. You'll find the episode. It was on my birthday. I remember it was like maybe 2022 on my birthday, and you text me being like, "There's this .btc names," and I was there. Melina was waiting for me to go out for lunch, and I'm like, "Just give me 20 minutes." I'm like, "I'm getting Kanye West .btc here, and the White House .btc, and like country names like Nigeria .btc." If they ever became a thing, mate. All right, welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. You got Jack Butcher, Bilal Zaidi. What's going on? Jack Trung is still away. He should be back next week, but we're holding it down this week. Lots of great questions, mate. We've got enough questions from the AMAs that we did a few weeks ago that we just didn't even get to. So I think we're probably going to go through some of those today. What's going on your side, mate? All good?
All good, mate. All good.
We did have this one follow-up. Last week, we talked about the treasury companies. Let me just share my screen here. Someone put together this website. Look straight at ChatGPT, as you just said, just before we started recording. It is cryptostocktracker.live. What great.
Nice.
So, bright green on black background. But essentially, it is tracking all the different treasury stocks. So, obviously, MicroStrategy should be in here. There you go. For the Bitcoin treasury stocks, there's these ETH treasury stocks nowadays as well. But the funny one, we even were going down the list here, XRP treasury stocks, Sol treasury stock. The fun one we've noticed was KIDZ, KIDZ or Z. Mate, we got I got a message. Go on.
Does this even say how much each of them has? It just says the market cap.
Treasury holder. Let me see if I extend the window.
There you go.
No, that's just saying ... on that one. But maybe some of these do. Look, Riot has
right.
crypto and everything. Yeah, so Bitcoin. Obviously this isn't great content for people listening only, which is most people. So just wanted to share that because it was a fun little follow-up. Because I think we were saying even on the pod, it'll be good to see in one place where, you know, all these, where basically track the potential downfall of the treasury companies, or like just see, you know, what the situation, the health check of what's going on. But yeah, pretty wild times we're in, mate. There's lots of fun stuff going on there. Should we get straight into the AMAs then? Let's was an older question from Jack Pedal. He said, what made Jack start getting active on Substack? Broader thoughts from the boys on the current state of play of different social platforms as strategizing to avoid platform risk. Nice question there, Jack. So yeah, real quick, Jack, since this was asked, are you still using Substack quite a bit? Because I noticed you were sending out quite a lot of emails, but there's also nowadays the equivalent of like tweets on Substack, right? Like the posts or whatever they call it.
Yeah. Not as much. I went back on there because they like all the app they built is decent, and when they introduced that feed feature, I played around with it for a few days, and just for me, it's another place to manage that is like, it doesn't make sense. Well, I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I just haven't had the like pull back to it in the same way that like Twitter is the place where I put everything all the time. So they just raised $100 million, didn't they? Substack, pretty sure.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
off the back of that. I think we've been talking about this for years. It's like it's a huge outlier type business. There's some people have built like really powerful platforms on top of Substack, like competitors to big media entity, like
amazing,
like traditional media companies. Like $10 a month, get your like, and I think that does make sense if you are a, you know, media company operating at scale, or you're reporting on very specific things happening. Well, not even specific things. You're reporting on current events. Whereas like I buy that this person's perspective on current events is the thing that I want, like the filter that I want my news to come through.
And it takes the incentive away of the older model of just ads and having to do clickbait stuff, right? Like a lot of people.
Yeah.
In a way,
in
but
theory,
maybe not.
But there's also like the attention economics of it, right? It's like a lot of the stuff
still
that's
playing that game.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that's gotten big is like New York Times is fucking biased, so subscribe to me. Like
Yeah.
it's just a different, like the economics don't really change the game that much. Yeah, I think, and they still do like they still end up shilling stuff or partnerships or ads or like I feel like there must be a certain scale where it just becomes like the economics of advertising just becomes so attractive at a certain scale that's like it can't be resisted or like I don't know. It would take more like legitimate research to confirm that theory, but it doesn't feel like any of that stuff is like the shape of the algorithms now is so different that I think we talked about this. Yeah, we talked about this last week, right? With in relation to maybe like the behavior in market crashes. Did we talk about that last week?
Whereas like maybe people a little bit.
Like,
but go for it. Yeah.
I was just gonna say like the way the world has, or the way these platforms, I would say, have shifted away from follower to interest.
Yeah,
all led by
like
maybe
the social
TikTok.
Platforms. You mean?
Yeah, it just feels like that mechanic is spreading throughout all the different platforms way more, right? And this is like Substack following that path in a lot of ways. It's like,
that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
How do we surface all the content from across our platform? You know what? We're going to show you what people you follow liked. And then we're going to start to show you stuff that we just think you're going to like. It's like, it's an inevitable thing, it feels like. At a certain point, it's like, you're not very good at finding stuff that you're going to pay attention to. You're also not very good at even demonstrating your preferences for certain things, right? Like, you consume way more content from people you don't follow than people you do. Like, I think that's probably true for most users of the internet, unless you're disciplined like Trung Phan and you turn your phone off while you're asleep.
From 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Oh my God, that is the best. I was just saying before we started recording, that was one of my favorite Trung moments where he was with a straight face saying, yo, man, I'm disciplined.
Really I'm
not on it 8 to 8. And we were like, wait, you're messaging us all day. We were assuming he meant during the day. But he meant, the time where he's sleeping for 8 hours in the night, and a couple hours after dinner, fair enough. Respect. But that's
like the illusion of the follower graph, right? I think it's like, that's really like maybe what platforms don't want to admit they're doing. So it's all sort of like, it's all sort of parallel to that. Like For You is like supposedly another feature, but it's really the direction the platform is headed in, and the following stuff is just kind of there as a nod to old behavior almost. It's just like
that's a good point. I think so. Jack go ahead.
And I just said my stuff has not been particularly discoverable on Substack, so to date, I just haven't put more resources there.
Did you find when you were you posting like what are they called, posts? Not like an email, but the equivalent of a tweet.
Posts, yeah, I think they're posts. They're called posts.
Posts. So did you find much resonance with that? And also in terms of driving people to subscribe to actual writing on Substack, do you feel like that helped at all, or not that much?
Maybe a little bit, yeah. I'm not writing continually on there. I always go back to it. Probably my last 5 emails on there are like, I'm going to start writing again. Literally written 5 different ways. I'm like, so stupid. And,
but I mean, it's interesting. I think it's good to see, if you see it as an experiment, you're testing it out, you've already got a lot on your plate. But I do think, just to take a step back as well, from my point of view, because, Substack isn't what was new with Substack was the paid for subscription, right? Like there were multiple, for 25 years, there's been email newsletters, right? They're essentially email newsletters, and there's MailChimp before that. That was very popular for a lot of people. All of us have had versions of that over the years. And I guess the main change they brought was this. Well, first of all, it was free for you to use, which if you've ever used MailChimp or any of these other email newsletter providers, it's actually kind of expensive. Like once you start getting a certain size of list, it can add up quite quickly. And so I think one was they offered that all the features and everything for free. And then most importantly, they added the ability for people to easily take subscription revenue and offer that out. And I think, do they take 10%? I forgot the amount, but I think they take 10%.
I think it's 10%, yeah.
Yeah, which again, whatever.
Maybe they changed that at different scales as well.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah. So and that was a big innovation in a way. Like maybe there's lots of other things that I'm missing, but for me, from the outside, I also obviously had quite a lot of writers on Creator Lab, like that are some of the big people on there, like Lenny, Polina from The Profile, obviously Trung as a decent little email newsletter on there, Mario from Generalist. So like I did get a little bit insight into kind of like why did they even pick that, and it's interesting. Some of them considered going off and then came back, and some of them were off on another platform. Like Beehive obviously had a massive growth spurt in the last few years and is really good as well. But I think the piece that they've really been solving for in the last few years is discoverability, and that's what everyone struggles with, right? Especially for a newsletter. Like podcast is similar, but just staying on newsletter for a minute is, okay, let's say 10,000 people reading my emails every week. It's not like that is easily, like people can share it, and forward it on to someone, but it's not like it's on a Twitter feed in native form where everyone is reading the full thing and just signing up one click. And that I remember even Twitter before it became X, they had those things where they were allowing you to sign up directly for a newsletter on there for a bit. There was like an experiment for that. Do you remember that? Where you could literally capture an email straight away on there. So I think that's the big part they've really been trying to solve for. Like the big one is the recommendation. So when you sign up for a newsletter, there's like a recommends thing, and you can like partner with other newsletter writers and say, oh, I'm going to promote your stuff, you cross promote mine. And for a lot of people I've spoken to, that's actually a massive source of growth for them. Like 20 to 50% of new users are coming from
recommendation.
That recommendation. Beehive had the version of that as well. But I think this evolution now with the posts, which has been around for a little bit of time now, is their version of trying to, like you said, just put you out there to a lot more people and then align with that kind of interest graph as well. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Substack overall. Like I think they did a really good job of just making it clean. Even when you're writing on there, it's just everything's kind of, all the distractions are taken away and it's quite simple. So pretty good job they've done growing that there. What were you going to say? You had something.
I think you said it.
Oh, okay. The other thing he asked about was like platform risk. Anything else on that? Just obviously, for people who don't know, obviously the social, there's a lot of platform risk around algorithm changes. So if you were, posting on Facebook in 2008 to 2012, you had, let's say, 50-60% organic reach. So if anyone who follows you, 50% of them may have seen your stuff, and now it's closer to like 1 to 3% or something. Instagram is the same, it's like 5 to 10%. Twitter is a little bit different, but obviously email, anyone who subscribes will get your email most of the time. So is that something that you thought a lot about as well when you were trying to experiment with it?
Well, I think unfortunately no one likes to hear this, but adapt or die, isn't it? It's like the idea that, and I've gone through massive long periods of like, oh, this algorithm does not like what I'm putting out. This is not being served where I want it to be served. And I think in the same way, like if I was putting that content in emails, the same issue applies, right? It's like, does this stuff have like natural momentum to it? Like the way I'm writing it, does it catch people's attention? Every single platform on the planet is trying to get your stuff in front of as many people as want to see it as possible, right? Like it's all, I think platform risk outside of like saying stuff that might get you banned, right? Which is a legitimate concern for some people, could also be reframed as like these changes are either asking you to like change the way you're presenting what you're doing or do something else. I feel like that's it's worse advice to say like build an email list than it is to like pivot the work you're doing to have more natural momentum on these platforms. Like when Visualize Value started, the amount of momentum behind that content was enormous in 2021, less so today, right? It's like you're competing with everybody else on Twitter that is prepared to like make outrageous claims or there's just it's just a totally different game. Well, not even totally different game. It's a totally different environment. It's the same game, but
same game meaning attention, but the
it
rules
just gets
have
more
changed
intense
a little bit. Yeah,
I think we reference this most episodes, but it's like you have to learn how the platforms work, and like they are incredible tools, and you can use them to your advantage. But if what you're doing is not being naturally amplified by those platforms, then the chances are whatever it is you're trying to get people to at the other end is not going to resonate either, because you're still competing with the rest of the internet for that little segment of attention, generally speaking, right?
I think I agree. I think one maybe opposition to that idea, though, I would say personally, is also, or maybe like it adds to what you're saying, is like you kind of have to know why you're doing it and be like very clear on that, because it's very easy to get completely distracted and optimized for, you know, the dopamine hit of a bigger number on, let's say, especially I think X, I found that the most. Like you probably noticed, I haven't been posting on there for ages. I haven't even posted on my personal Instagram for like several years. Like I just haven't been. I like doing podcasts, as you know, and this is where I get my like creative fix, and that's the reason I do it, right? So, and that's not me trying to say like, oh, it's I'm doing it in a way that other people should do it. I'm just trying to be honest with myself that when I have gone down that route, I've really realized like, oh, it's very natural for you just to look at the number and say, oh, well, this one didn't work, this one did, therefore I need to do more of that. Versus like, what was the point of me doing this in the first place? And that's maybe, you know, it depends on if your goal is to grow your newsletter to make a living from it, obviously you then need to play that game, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I even see it in like the Arsenal side of like, I have another Twitter account where I just follow football stuff, and it's the same sort of like the inflammatory stuff, the stuff where people are fighting in the comments obviously rises to the top a lot of the time. And I will say there's actually an amazing example of like amazing writers that are like straight up basically professional analysts that write these crazy long posts that are on equivalent of a Substack or email newsletter. And some of them I'll pay for just because I'm like, you're doing something that I want to support. And that was the original ethos of like Substack and Patreon, I guess. Nowadays, it's become more of like a business model change where you're getting more content or you're getting an additional, you know, value as a user, which is great either way. But anyway, that's a long way of saying I think it's really important to be honest with yourself. For example, like Trung, it would be good to get Trung's take on this. Trung told me many times in the past that the whole reason he writes stuff is to get people to see his memes, right? Like that's basically what he says. Maybe that's like a summary that isn't complete, or his jokes. He likes writing jokes and making people laugh. And he just likes getting that feeling out of it. I would also say, knowing him, he also really likes writing long form stuff, right? So I don't think it's just one thing. Now, what I would say though is if there's a case where you move from the person who's creating the memes that are original, and say he primarily, which he isn't, but let's say someone who says that primarily just becomes someone who like recycles other people's memes and basically takes other people's content just to get more numbers. That's where I'd say that person's kind of gone off the path of what they think they've said and expressed what they wanted to do. I would also question if that's really what they wanted to do. Maybe they did just want to get the dopamine hit. So, which is again up to them to decide. So yeah, that's the only thing I'd say where I do feel like the algorithm changes, specifically on X, I've noticed the most. I'd actually say Instagram as well. Like Instagram, the feed is just so like, I don't enjoy it at all. Like, and X similar for me, like the 2021, 2022 algorithm where people were actually sharing stuff that I was like, wow, that's someone's that really put thought into this. It's kind of helpful or useful or funny. Now, a lot of my feed is just like videos of inflammatory stuff or like people arguing or like very simple takes. Like even I don't want to bring the mood down, but yesterday there was obviously a shooting in Manhattan. You probably saw that, and it was just kind of interesting seeing this stuff play out live. And naturally, you go to Twitter for this stuff because it's the most real-time network. But it straight away became this political thing. It was either one side is like, oh, that's why you shouldn't have guns in America, you know, if you're like very left-leaning. Or the other side was CNN called this guy white and look at him, he's not white. Like, it just became this like shitting on match sort of thing. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I actually spend a lot less time on it as I used to, because I just don't want to spend my energy on that personally. But if the question was about like how do you build a business, how do you like promote the stuff you're trying to promote, then yeah, of course you do need to respect. That's like what works on those platforms. Any other thoughts, mate? I was going on a little rant there, but yeah.
No, mate. Balanced
All right.
take.
Yeah, great question though. Thanks for sharing that, Jack, the person who asked the question, and Jack for answering it. Here's a nice little layup for you, mate. Significant other. How much of your professional success would you credit to your significant other, direct or indirect? Any advice to help a lovingly supportive partner feel appreciated when you still need to lock in after the day job? That's a good question.
Great question. I mean, impossible to put a number on it, but very, very, very significant, especially at like a later stage in your life, you know,
where
you
got
have
kids, especially, I'm sure.
Exactly. Just like the amount of responsibilities that multiply in that scenario. But there's also like, you know, Celia, even in the early days of our relationship, was a like no questions asked supporter of whatever was the goal at the time, and honestly very brutally honest and motivating at times when I was doing the wrong thing, or was just like pursuing something and getting nowhere in the wrong way, you know, not in the real advantage of it in my mind is like somebody who like knows you well enough to know when you're like bullshitting yourself.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And that's like that's the best thing to have access to, because, you know, if you like spin by yourself and you don't have that external perspective that you trust completely, you can end up way further away than where you're trying to get to. And I mean, in my experience and in my specific situation too, it's like Celia and I used to work together. Like before we had kids, we were doing this together. Pretty much the agency world started that way, and then the first iterations of Visualized Value went that way. And then, you know, this is going to be specific to people who are in this situation, but trying to convey that what she's doing is 50% or more of what makes what I'm doing possible, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's really hard to convey that. And you have to be...
Especially when you're the face of Visualized Value. Obviously.
Exactly,
you're the creative, the artist, like, yeah.
Yeah, and just like I think this is maybe a more traditional point of view, I guess. It's like you're like... The definition of a team that some people would use or think of is like how similar the things you're doing are, right? It's like we're on a team because we're both going to this pitch meeting to talk about this thing. It's like, no. The other definition of team is like the stuff that I am not doing is getting done by this person. So I can do X, Y, or Z, and vice versa. And like acknowledging that and being conscious of that is I think the vast majority of helping people feel like they're contributing and understood, and like that's a lifelong pursuit to get better at that and to like be aware of it, because it by definition the two of you are like doing different things at that point, right? You're totally focused on different things all day long, and you don't see what each other is doing for each other, but just trying to And the comment about like the lock-in stuff is also you sort of learn over time, and I still figuring this out, is like you respect your partner by doing your work as well as you can. You know, and explaining that, or like, it's, what am I trying to say with that? It's like, how was the question phrased? Just read me the question again, if you don't mind.
So it said, how much of your professional success would you credit to your significant other, direct or indirect? Any advice to help a lovingly supportive partner feel appreciated when you still need to lock in after the day job? So I feel like that second part was about I'm assuming this person, maybe they're working, they come home, they're like, oh, I have to focus on this work outside of my work. And you have to show that they probably want your attention or want to do stuff with you. And you want to show, how do you show that person appreciation, I guess?
Well, I guess I would challenge the question, because the way that person, he or her, referred to the partner, right? Lovingly supportive partner. It sounds like they already supporting what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You just acknowledge the fact that is happening. And I think the idea that what you're doing is in service of like building a better environment for the two of you.
Yeah.
Sounds like they already understand that, but it doesn't hurt to
that's
be
a good,
crystal clear and acknowledge it.
Yeah. The only thing I'd add on that second part, and I'll answer the first part in a second, is I would also, it sounds like that person is already supporting you, just to make it easier. I think this was a guy, and I'm assuming his partner was a girl. So in case I say the wrong, whatever way around. So I think it's great if they're already showing appreciation. That's the big first step, because you've probably been, and I have been in relationships where I was doing creative work since like quite a young age, doing stuff outside of my core work since, as you know, like since I was a kid. And there's so many of those people that just didn't understand what I was doing. And it was like, that was the most demoralizing thing, right? Because you just like, that's such an important part of you as a person. And if they don't understand, they don't have to understand what you're doing, but they have to understand why it's important to you. So that's the first part. Like I'm just thinking specifically in past relationships where they just really didn't understand. They're like, oh, well, can't you just get a regular job? And then in the evenings we get to do this together. And being with someone who understands that part of you is really important, even if they're not like that. In my relationship, thankfully, Melina is also like that. And actually the interesting thing with our relationship is, one of the earliest things that I loved about her outside of her work, and, you know, obviously her as a person, was she had a blog at university. Like she had a fashion blog, and she had she taught herself photography and was doing all this cool writing. And I remember just thinking like, oh, that's just it seemed like such a small thing, but it shows someone is proactive, can teach themselves stuff, has passions outside of what is being asked of them to be done. They have initiative, and it means they understand that feeling like on the weekend, oh, I'm going to dedicate myself to making something. I'm going to teach myself photography on the side. And that was something we actually bonded over quite a bit. I also think there's like a creative element to it as well. So whenever I was doing all the different creative things or things outside of work since we've been together, she's always been exactly the same as what you said. So supportive, and just, you know, gives you that belief as well to be like, oh yeah, I'm not being completely crazy with this thing. Or when you're taking a risk and it can actually impact both you, let's say we're leaving our jobs, that's also incredible support, right? Like to be on the same page that, oh yeah, you should definitely go and do that. It makes sense what you said. And like you said, on the flip side, when you seem to be maybe making a decision that's rash, to be a like mirror to you to say, did you think about this point of view? So the key is like, yeah, you have to respect each other enough to really respect that person's opinion. It doesn't mean they have to understand like the ins and outs of what Substack is as a platform and you're going to be an email newsletter writer. It just means that they understand like how important it is to you. And then the second part around like lovingly support, how can you show them your appreciation? Again, that's very individual, obviously, to that person. But I would say, it sounds very cliche, but you've probably heard of love languages, right? Like it's just one of those things like you should know your partner's like love languages. And like, for example, I don't really care that much about gifts, but I really care about, I can't even remember all of them off the top of my head. What is it like? It's words of affirmation, gifts, and let me just Google this because I'm going to say love languages. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of it.
So they are words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, physical touch. Yeah. So for me, I'm an acts of service person. If someone like cooks me a nice meal, I'm like, oh, that's such a nice gesture. Like, you know, that's like something I really appreciate. Someone else doesn't care about that. And vice versa for your partner, you should know like what they really value. And that's how you show them appreciation, right? So and it's just like also just communicating that to them that you, especially like I found with, in my relationship anyway, it's just constantly communicating and reiterating stuff that you may have said in the past, just reminding them of that, I think is a really big thing as well. So yeah, that might be a little bit, not for everyone, but I do think that's worth mentioning as well. And yeah, the summary too, how important is it? Obviously, it's like more than 50% if you're in a long-term relationship together. Like the balancing of the household, being on the same page of financial goals, building stuff together. And then I can only imagine, I don't have kids at the moment, but having kids is just a next level responsibility. So you need to be completely locked in together on that. Anyway, yeah, anything else to add on that, mate? Very good question. Thanks for submitting that. Anything else before we move on to the next? One. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I thought it was going to be a simple answer, but there's actually quite a lot of layers to it there. But all right, next question, very much in the Jack realm. Branding guy Jack, what is the value of usernames? He said, how much inherent value is in an OG username on X or Instagram, e.g. at Jack, at Trung, at Bilal, etc. And I would extend that question. Someone else asked about domain names too, so I'm curious to get your take on both of those things. How important is a name in general, and specifically as a username or a domain name to you?
Man, I think
to get your take.
I think I wrote about this a couple years ago on like product names, specifically with like packaging ideas. Like the quality of the name is basically if you don't give something a good name, then you're massively chopping into its chances of success, right? Just by way of, we talked about this on loads of different angles too, like the Harry Styles thing. Remember the nominative determinism stuff?
Yeah.
It's like the language is such a underrated interface. I think on those platforms, like a lot of those people maybe aren't like directly monetizing stuff, you know, but there's still like the status of the early claim, right? It's like you must have been on Instagram. You either must have been here in the first week or you paid somebody to get that off of them. And it definitely conveys, it's definitely valuable. Like they like just the
especially
fact that
if it's Jack on Twitter, because the founder of Twitter is Jack.
There you go. Exactly. I'm not getting that one. I got Jack definitely. On Farcaster.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah. And that's a good example, right? It's like if the only reason I was able to get my name on that protocol is because it's like a very niche platform that I happen to be like part of that little group when it got started. And I think on Instagram, that's probably not the case for most of those now, right? They're probably like all aftermarket. The vast majority of people that secured them early, or maybe they're like Instagram employees. So maybe that's not true because they probably don't necessarily need to sell them off if they were part of the founding team of Instagram or close to it. But yeah, massively valuable. And then we can invoke friend of the pod, Michael Saylor. Like one of my favorite examples of that one is alarm.com, you know, like his whole rant on that.
And he had like hope.com and he had a few of those.
Yeah. Like instead of how much would it cost you to raise enough awareness about your, you know, like say you call it like bobsalarms.com versus buying alarm.com for 30 million bucks or whatever he sold it for. Like the paid media you would need to create to get the level of recognition for bobsalarms.com probably vastly exceeds $30 million. I think the world still is like wildly mispriced on a lot of that stuff.
That's interesting.
What was that really controversial thing?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. Chat.com. There was one like someone raised 20 million. They spent 10 million on a domain. Do you remember that? Like that was a couple months ago.
Yeah. Wait,
I forget what the product was
Nick
now.
Huber, was it? somewhere.com or something. I don't know if he spent that much on it, but I know he
There was
spent
another
a good
one.
amount on
It wasn't that one, but there was another one that was like
a
I think it's
VC backed
$9 million
company or
bucks on
something.
a .com.
Yeah, I think I remember this.
And it's like it splits people down the middle, that issue, right? It's like, oh, it's, waste of money. You could spend that on product and all.
Yeah.
And
no, it's an interesting point.
I definitely lean more in the camp of like, that is a massive advantage.
Important.
And it's just like,
yeah,
there's all of this like even the .com thing, right? Like having a .com domain is still an issue where people are like blind, like subconsciously have more trust for that as a domain than like whatever, TLD or something. Yeah, valuable. Digital real estate. You will not find us deriding the value of digital real estate on this podcast.
There you go. Well, I would add to what you said, Jack, and say I generally also lean towards, if you're picking one or the other, obviously names matter. I don't think it would be silly to say they don't. But I do think it's a couple things, diminishing returns potentially. Like in the example we said, hope.com, or alarms.com. And it's directly correlated to your potential scale. So for example, if it's bobsalarm.com and he's got a tiny little shop and he's a 67-year-old man in, Brooklyn, and he's never going to like sell more than the capacity of his shop, then like spending 30 million on a domain obviously isn't going to make sense. I'm using an extreme example to demonstrate the point. But for example, chat.com, which ChatGPT bought, I'm pretty sure they bought it from the founder of HubSpot. I forgot the guy.
Oh, is it?
I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure I've heard him talk about it, where he sold chat.com, and instead of just selling it for cash, he basically bought a stake in, he used it to get a stake in OpenAI, which is also a very smart move. If I remember that correctly. So that to me is like, there's leverage of a scale of ChatGPT of trillions of dollars in the long run. Of course, spending 20 million on a domain or whatever it is very much worth it. And but I would say on most people's scale, I think it can also become a distraction where people like, the perfectionism thing, like I need the perfect name or I need the perfect username. And a lot of the time it's like,
I understand that.
You know what I mean? So obviously you would agree with all the things I'm saying, but I think the short answer is yes, it has value, but also like I wouldn't overthink it. If you're trying to like start something, just like get the one that's available. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed. And like those things are all like tactics along the way. To visualize value did not start with the name Visualize Value.
What was it originally?
It was called, the first Twitter account was called Trust Accelerator, which was a service business I was running, which was like the
agency,
name for a marketing agency, basically.
Because you had another, wasn't it? Opponent as well? Was
Opponent, yeah.
Was that the same business? So you just had different names?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, they were like, Opponent was the one I was doing like, exactly. Opponent was the one I was using for like corporate consulting, basically. Where it's like, you're competing with like RGA and like these, 72 and Sunny, like you have some ideological it wouldn't make sense. It's like lower in the market. It's like low market to be like Trust Accelerator. You gotta be way more.
Yeah, you want some like piffy, like a
lofty,
pie in the sky, exactly lofty word.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I like Opponent. That's a good
publicist.
And,
and the irony of Opponent was like, we're different than everybody else. It's like, no, you ain't. You're gonna come in here. You're gonna sign the Oracle timesheets. You're gonna comply with our billing. Yeah.
Oh man, nothing would do it for you than having to log in. What's the one I'm using? Cooper, mate. Absolute. Just to send an invoice, mate. That is. Oh man, that is. Terrible. Every time I go to do it, I have to go to a note to remind myself. It takes me 3 minutes, but it's like I can't remember how to do it because there's so many. You have to pull the drop down, all of that sort of stuff. Cooper Portal.
You know what? There's an intro.
My favorite.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to pull this up or find it somewhere, but it's like this is actually this is like kind of relevant to the previous question about the spouse. Whereas like if you're trying to go from employed to self-employed, you basically have to like sacrifice some status in the process, like traveling around on the Amex corporate card, staying at the Ritz-Carlton, and then it's like, no, now you have to go and find a business that can operate on a time scale that's going to mean that you're not going to like starve, basically. So you like go to a smaller business where the founder can make decisions. And where am I going with this? What was the last question we had? Your
value of names or significant other.
Oh yeah, value of names. So it's like that is translated into the name, right? It's like you have to get more and more down to earth with what the service is that you're providing, or like at least that was my experience. And then when I go back and look at these like agency websites, the big agency websites, I'm like, what do these guys even do? It's like the most abstract things you can imagine. It's like we are at the intersection of art and technology, and we craft beautiful products.
Yeah, and I have no idea what you're actually doing. It's like,
what are you?
And then they end up like managing Facebook ads or something. And it's
exactly.
Just tell me what you're doing, man. Yeah.
For some reason, like that becomes
challenging the status quo.
Where it's like, exactly. Where it's like you have to become this catch-all because maybe the thing that you defined yourself as to get traction is not a big enough market, or like you get bored, or you take on this other stuff and then you buy other businesses, and it just becomes this like unbundling, rebundling process, right? And that's why, like, to go back to the name thing, like domain and name are different things. So like a name in service of explaining what you do has incredible amount of value. And then if you have to like buy a domain that isn't the .com that still incorporates that, you should do that, like where people have like try whatever.com, or like a dash between the words or whatever,
because they couldn't get .com. Yeah, that's a really, I haven't thought of it like that, because I've normally thought of them as bundled. As like anytime I've had a name, I've always like checked, does it also have the .com? But you're right, like a lot of companies don't do that, or they do that to start, and then they eventually get big enough where they just go buy the .com later or something.
They can buy it, yeah. And it's an interesting conversation. I really like the process of like trying to find a name too that has the .com available. Like if you go that route. You got
a process. Is there any? What's it look like?
I have gone through it before with like brand, like somebody's like, oh, we want to do the thing that comes to mind is like some like longevity supplement, right? Or some like competitor to something like Alpha Brain, the Rogan thing. What was that?
They're on it. They buy on it.
On it. Exactly. You'd go through the process of like what legitimately describes this and has the .com available. Like you can approach it from that perspective, but I think that maybe works way better in these like what's the word, like CPG or like consumable stuff. Like if you have a service business or something like that, like the more abstract your name is, the more you're shooting yourself in the foot at the beginning.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a really good distinction. It's like consumer brand. You're competing against the biggest ad budgets in the world, the biggest basically most of CPG is honestly like an average to slightly better than average product with 10 out of 10 branding. If they're on the shelf, they 100%. Got there because of that reason, right? So you're really competing on that as a core competency versus like a service business or something. Most of your business is coming from referrals. So like if you're called some random name, it doesn't matter as much necessarily. But yeah, that's a really, I like that where that went there. Similarly, there was a question from Zach Guido, since we're talking about names. What good domains do you have parked? I bet you've got a couple. And only if we could go through the .btc names that we both have, that would be the best. I mean, if that ever became a thing, me and Jack will be chilling, because we got some good ones there, mate. Yeah, that was the fun. I remember, do you know what? I remember this, if this is old school NIA reference, you could probably find it on YouTube. type in .btc on our YouTube channel, you'll find the episode. It was on my birthday. I remember it was like maybe 2022 on my birthday, and you text me being like, "There's this .btc names," and I was there. And Melina was waiting for me to go out for lunch, and I'm like, "Just give me 20 minutes." I'm like, "I'm getting Kanye West .btc here, and the White House .btc, and like country names like Nigeria .btc." If there ever became a thing, mate, that is definitely. I mean, I'm happy to gift it to Kanye West. To be fair,
exactly. On Ethereum, there's still markets for those. You know, the ENS.
Oh
stuff.
yeah, definitely.
I'm just logging into my Squarespace, see if I got any good ones. Hang on.
I'll think off the top of my head. I honestly don't have that many anymore. I used to love getting those, and after a while, a lot of them are just names for a project you thought of, and you instinctively like, oh, I'm gonna go get that just to take the first step. Standard. I've got a lot of like honestly good for SEO names, because I knew they had some value. Like Quota was one. I think I had like, it's a bit of a random one, but it's a short enough name as well. Tracking investments, like honestly it's not even that good, but it's like one of those, someone's typing that in. I think I've still got that somewhere. There's one that is not me, but someone close enough to me that's not my missus, before someone guesses. Fundamentalist.com. Incredible name. That one is an old school 1999 registered. If anyone ever wants to buy that, that's one of those one word names that's been in the press a lot, especially back then. Got to be careful you're selling that one too, but that's a good one that if anyone ever wanted, could definitely get access to it, basically. Anything on your one, Jack? I bet you've got a few there. Let me log in the
I got a load of odd ones like VV dot, and I bought loads of them like VV dot land, VV dot media, VV dot money, VV dot run is a good one. I use that as like the short URL. Yeah, you're using that as your shortener,
right? Yeah.
I like that one. VV.xyz is where the new VV app is, which is a good domain. And what else I got? Jack.art. That's a good one.
That's a very good one. I'm having to do a 2-factor login here, mate. That's why I'm taking a second.
Mate. Yeah, most of mine are very niche and odd. Value.app I bought that.
You were using that for a bit, no?
Yeah, it was like a blog. It was good.
Well, I remember you had Value on Twitter or Instagram or something, right? That was a phenomenal name you had there. Oh, here's some other ones I got. Creatorjournal.com. I was working on a little journal for a while, like a physical one that was related to Creator Lab. The annoying one for me has always been Arsenal Review. Still got the .co.uk. I had the .com for most of the time I was writing on there 20 years ago. And during my university final year exams, I was not looking at my email because I was locked in. Someone snagged it, and now they're trying to sell it for 10 G's back to me, and I kind of refuse out of like principle.
Yeah, I understand.
But like one day I might just do it just to like, you know, get it back. It feels like one of those.
Close the loop.
Yeah. But yeah, I honestly not that many great ones. I also feel like I had so many at one point where they were just, it was unnecessary and silly. So
oh man, I went through and I did the switch off the auto renew a while ago.
That's good. Yeah,
it's quite satisfying when you get the email that says that one's not being renewed.
Yeah,
set it free.
Especially honestly, some of them like they're normally like $10 a year, but I had a lot of like .fm because Creator Lab is creatorlab.fm. That one I think is like $80 a year or something. It's like one of those annoying ones where they'll get
.app is expensive. One of them's like $500 a year. I think .app is maybe.
Oh, yeah. By the way, have you heard about, we don't have time to talk about it, but have you heard the story about how all these got, you know, it used to be .com.org and a few basic ones. And then they, at one point, opened up this auction. And there's a crazy story of how a few people basically like made, I think it was hundreds of millions off these auctions. It was kind of crazy. We'll save that for like a fun fact fan episode or something on that one. Yeah. But yeah, great question. I would love to hear in the comments on YouTube specifically. Let us know if you've got some bangers. I bet people listen to this. There's some good creative people that we've got that are working on stuff all the time. We've got 10 minutes or so, just under 10 minutes. So let's do this question. This was an interesting one. I can't remember who it was from, but it said, what would Jack and Bilal do if they would run the UK government to make it more attractive for them to move back? And when we first looked at this question, we said, maybe let's reframe it. Instead of like what we'd do if we're running the government, more just like what would it take for us to want to ever move back, I guess, is more of a...
You wouldn't want, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if you have answers
not a job
on the
I
first...
would be qualified for or interested in, I don't
Exactly.
think.
Maybe we'll answer a little bit of both. But yeah, is there... I think the big one for me, first of all, is if it's a personal thing, a lot of it is just to your life circumstances. You have 3 kids, an American wife. I have an American partner as well. And... my family are there, so that would be one of the main reasons to ever move back. It's just a boring, obvious answer. But in terms of like the actual government policy, I guess what we're seeing a lot on the Twitter hive mind is a very negative, bearish case on Europe as a whole. Obviously, the latest version of that has been, the tariffs deal, which maybe we'll say for next week with Trung to break down.
Yep.
And then I think there was a non-dom rule change in the UK, which we've touched on before, which was essentially around paying, basically on all global income, I think is now going to count in the UK, which it didn't used to before. So those are all things that would obviously be very specific to the individual. In terms of like a place to actually live, like London is great. Like London's an amazing city, very diverse, got great parks, got access to good universities if you care about that for your kids in 20 years, who knows. The other good thing there is that you've got, the US is so spread out, and if you want to work in finance, you generally move to New York. If you want to work in tech, you go to San Francisco or Silicon Valley. You work in media, Hollywood, you go to LA. In the UK, most of that is happening in London. So that actually creates a very unique, interesting environment. There's obviously music, arts, everything in one place. You can jump on the subway or tube train and go meet anyone in 20, 30 minutes. It's very accessible. And yeah, you also have the feeling of like that diverse feeling of Europe, all in and not just Europe, honestly, the world. Like people from all over the world living there. So there's so many great things already that I don't think government policy necessarily is going to impact too much, except for obviously when we left the EU, that did actually change that quite dramatically with some of the immigration laws and stuff like that. I think for me, it's more about like the business side of things. That's the main reason I moved here to the US, was the opportunity upside of the biggest market in the world. That feels to me still kind of the big barrier there. But yeah, that was just me riffing on it. Jack, what about you, mate? I know you've probably thought a little bit about this.
Yeah, I think that's probably I'm in a similar boat to you, came over to the States specifically for a job that was like, not like I grew up wanting to leave the UK at all. I didn't even think that was something I would do. Just sort of a circumstantial thing. And I'm sure, I don't know, I think there was a point in time where I was like comparing, because I worked at a big agency that had offices in New York and London. I was working in the New York one. I was like, oh, maybe I would like transfer back over and just work in the London office. And I sort of seriously considered it for a bit, but it's also like at different stages of your life, you're comparing different things. Like New York and London is one comparison, right?
Yeah,
and then,
to Nashville with 3 kids.
Exactly. I think so much of my decision to live here is not about like, I find it hard to make a comparison, because like I basically have lived my entire adult life in the States at this point, right? So like functionally speaking, like American culture has been my entire experience of working life.
Yeah, and what you remember of the UK is very different to what it actually is potentially now as well.
Yeah, my last time I was living in the UK, I was 21 or 20 or 21, and straight out of university. And
do you ever live in London itself, like as an adult, or because
I used to get the train?
Yeah.
I used to get the train.
And that's obviously a very different experience to like moving to New York and you're hustling and bustling, like the whole experience.
Yeah, so I got like so much more romantic view of the States from my like working life. That man, my working life in London, I was taking the train from Swindon every day, like take the bus to the train station, go to London,
commute,
get the tube to work. Tube back to the
How long did it take
station.
one way?
probably 2 hours and a bit.
Oh, for one way. So you were doing 4 hours a day. That is insane, man.
4 hours commuting a day, and then
that's crazy.
Get your meal deal at WH Smith.
Oh man, yeah,
lunch,
good times though. Good times, yeah.
And then get out of there. I was best. And then
meal deal.
I had some.
No one does a good meal deal like the UK. To be fair,
I know,
WH Smith,
Sainsbury's,
M&S, Sainsbury's. Yeah, you get a sandwich, packet of crisp, chocolate, and a drink or a piece of fruit or whatever. £4. Very, very good meal. You don't really get that here as much.
Yeah, I like London a lot.
Little Pret sandwich. Yeah.
I mean, I think, excuse me, like the friction to starting businesses specifically, or like commerce in general, seems higher. And I think that is a like paperwork thing, but it's also a cultural thing. You know,
we mentioned this before, and we did get a comment from someone, if you remember, who lived in the UK and actually said the opposite. And he said that he'd done it here, if I remember correctly, and UK, and he was asking for our feedback, specifically gov.uk or whatever, like the government website has actually been quite a good process to streamline a lot of that stuff, apparently, but I haven't gone through it, so who knows?
That's good.
But that we haven't experienced that, so it's kind of hard to know.
Yeah, I guess it's way more cultural barriers than it is like, I don't think they're like intentionally like trying to sabotage commercial activity, right? But yeah, I don't know. I think the vast majority of the answer is tax, right? Like if we're going to be totally frank about like why people are bouncing, it's like they're more competitive environments for tax, and they'll probably make like vast changes to the tax system to try and dissuade people from doing that, right?
And also I will say, for most people, we both have our own business, self-employed, but if you're earning a salary, generally speaking, the salaries in the UK on average are way lower than, let's say, the US on average. And that's a big, obviously that doesn't account for free healthcare versus paying $1,000 a month for health insurance, all those different things. But generally speaking, like I know lots of people moved in exactly the same job, made 30-40% more here straight away in exact same job. And just the upside here, earning potential wise in a normal career, generally speaking, is higher. I think that's the main reason people move here, to be honest, right? It's an opportunity for that. Self-employed wise too, there's a lot of upside. And so I think that was a great distinction, it's a cultural thing more than necessarily a policy thing. There are some policy things as well, but there's actually a lot of positive policy things. They were incentivizing a lot of stuff for people to start businesses and stuff like that. You could also argue there's a bit of a social net, so for people to take a risk, there's less on the line in a way for them to feel like, oh, I can't leave my job because of my health insurance. And that works two ways. Some people, it gives them the confidence to take that risk, and other people, they need that push to say, oh, I need to make $1,000 this month for my health insurance. So it goes both ways. And I know you got to go in a second, so I'll just say the last thing. There was a great tweet on this to answer the government thing specifically. That's a better idea than I think either of us would come up with. So I'll just share it really quickly. Rupert Walker said, British government should go full Manhattan Project on Oxford-Cambridge Arc, 10x both science parks in size, including special ARIA and DSTL zones, militarize them for national security and for defense tech integration, grow the cities to 1 million population each by 2050, most internal migration, link the cities with high-speed trains and new motorway, poach academic and entrepreneurial talent globally with elite visas, moonshot R&D and GDP to 5%, build town-sized data centers, no public consultation, no vetoes, no council blocking, no whining MPs, pure executive power acting on national emergency, whatever it takes to make Britain dominant in the full technological stack for nuclear propulsion, robotics, AI, and quantum. And anyway, I just wanted to share that because I thought it was such a banger tweet, even if I haven't really dissected all of it. Because that kind of is a great way to leave it there. It's just, the UK has so much talent, infrastructure from hundreds of years of being a dominant power, amazing people, amazing universities. A lot of the AI stuff we got today, a lot of it came from the original stuff that was done in companies that were started there, or the seeds of it. So there's incredible talent, and I think I think the first big ideological change up front is to not demonize and instead celebrate that idea of entrepreneurial business being a positive thing, and balancing that with the need for most of society seeing the gap between rich and poor getting wider and wider, and feeling that strain and understanding that both can be potentially addressed. And I think right now in Europe is kind of gone in one direction, where the general consensus is moving in one direction politically. So anyway, that was one thing I wanted to call out. Great tweet from Rupert Walker. Great chat as always. I know you'll be out next week. I'll do one with Trung. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll see you next week. And cheers. Bye-bye.